You ever have one of those moments where you just stand there thinking, you've got to be kidding me? Yeah, well, that's pretty much how my story started, with my HOA president neighbor threatening to call the cops because I wouldn't let her boyfriend use my lake. Not our lake, not the community's, my backyard, my dock, my lake. And the wildest part, she really believed she could just hand it over like she was giving out party favors. I mean, I've seen some weird property disputes in my time as a lawyer, but this was next level. I knew crazy when I saw it. But something about the way Carol stood her ground, all smug and certain, made me think, what if she actually believes she's got this kind of power? So I started digging, and what I found flipped everything I thought I knew about the neighborhood upside down. But let me back up a sec. I'd just bought my dream home, a little slice of heaven with lake access right out back. Years in property law, finally enough in the bank, and suddenly I was living the American dream, or so I thought. The neighbors all seemed fine at first. Carol, the self-declared president, had been around forever, always with her boyfriend Chad, this old guy who just wanted to fish and keep to himself. Then there was sweet Mrs. Donald, been here longer than anyone, always with a kind word. It looked normal enough, but, well, looks can be deceiving. It took 2 weeks for things to get weird. I came home from work one day to find Chad, rod and tackle box in hand, setting up on my dock like he had done it 1,000 times before. He was polite, at least just a little confused, said Carol had worked out some HOA agreement for lake access, pulled out a handwritten note, literally a scrap of paper signed by HOA order Chad Miller, granted lake access via back property path, Carol Henderson, president. I just stared at it. My lawyer brain went haywire. Nothing about this was legal. So I marched right over to Carol's place, trying to keep my cool, and asked about Chad. Instantly, she was defensive. It's just good community management. I have the authority as HOA president. Your deed has access obligations you obviously didn't read. She wouldn't show me a single legal document. You'll see it when the new rules are printed. Just cooperate. Meanwhile, Mrs. Donald, watering her flowers nearby, whispered, I've never seen an HOA election in 25 years. Carol just took over after her husband died. That was the first red flag, but it wasn't the last. By sundown, half the neighborhood was apparently under the impression they had free rein to my backyard. Carol had told them it was community access. Young families planning to bring their kids swimming. Retirees talking about fishing weekends. That's when it hit me. She'd given away my land like it was a raffle prize, and nobody thought to ask me. The next morning, I found a sign at the head of my path, Community Lake Access HOA approved. I couldn't believe it. And Carol was out there telling everyone I was being selfish for not wanting to share community resources. Chad kept using the path, totally convinced Carol was the law. So that night I sat in my kitchen papers everywhere, reading my deed for the 100th time. It was crystal clear. Private property, no easements, no community clauses, nothing. My gut told me something was off, deeper than just a pushy neighbor. What if the HOA itself wasn't even real? Monday, I was at the county clerk's office to check. But before that, I had to do something about all these trespassers. I went out to remove Carol's sign. And that's when the flashing red and blue lights showed up. You know that oh no feeling? Yeah, that. 2 officers, looking bored but serious, came up the walk. We got a call about you threatening neighbors and denying community access. I about choked. Then I actually heard Carol's voice on their radio, trembling, painting me as some dangerous nut, refusing to honor community rights and threatening the elderly. I pulled myself together, showed the officers my deed and tax records. One looked at it and said, Sir, if this is your property, you have every right to control access. Carol wasn't giving up, though. She was right there spinning her story. He's disrupting our community. The cops basically said, work it out between yourselves, and left. But it was clear Carol wasn't just freelancing, she was orchestrating a full-on power grab. That's when I started hearing the real horror stories. Mrs. Johnson told me Carol had arranged for everyone to use my path. A young family said the same. Then Mr. Peterson said Carol told him he had to tear down his fence for community sightlines, and an elderly couple had been told they couldn't plant flowers without HOA approval. All these people had just accepted Carol's word as law. The neighborhood split right down the middle. Some supported me, some thought I was greedy, and everyone was whispering. Meanwhile, Carol was doubling down, sending fake HOA notices, accusing me of hostile behavior, claiming I was violating community harmony. Each one was more desperate than the last. That's when it really hit me. Carol's HOA was all smoke and mirrors. No elections, no records, no official letters. Everything she handed out had spelling mistakes. No letterhead and no phone number. President for life, one even said. I mean, come on. Mrs. Donald quietly told me she'd never received any official HOA mail, just cash requests from Carol. The whole neighborhood had been conned for years. So I decided to fight back. Spent the weekend building a gate that would make it absolutely clear this property is private. High-quality cedar, 6 feet tall, with these artistic, almost medieval wooden thorns, intimidating but beautiful. I made sure Carol could see every nail. She stood at her window, glaring, snapping photos, probably plotting her next move. The support from some neighbors was instant. Mrs. Donald brought me lemonade. Mr. Peterson wished he'd done the same years ago, and even some younger folks admired the work. Of course, Carol's faction hated it. He should be more neighborly, they'd mutter. But the message was clear. My land, my rules. But here's the twist. As I was finishing the gate, a car with government plates drove by slow, the driver taking photos. He introduced himself as Dr. Casey from the State Environmental Protection Agency, said they'd been trying to get research access for years, but the previous HOA president blocked them. I didn't think much of it at the time, but that would come back in the best way. Monday morning, I took every scrap of official HOA paperwork down to the county office. The clerk checked her system and said, "Sir, this HOA's registration expired 4 years ago. It doesn't exist." That was it. Carol's whole regime was a scam. She'd been running a fake organization collecting fees, enforcing rules, and nobody had ever questioned it until me. I wish I could say that ended things, but Carol wasn't done. She went nuclear. Smear campaign, false incident reports, intimidating photos of my prison gate. Even people who'd supported me started to avoid me crossing the street, believing the rumors. I'll be honest, it got to me. I almost gave up. But then Mrs. Donald showed up with a stack of receipts, years of $50 maintenance fees paid straight to Carol. Other neighbors started coming forward with similar stories. Carol had been fleecing the whole neighborhood. She tried to hold one last emergency HOA meeting to vote me out, demand my gate be removed, and rally the neighborhood. But I came prepared, folder in hand. County records, financial evidence statements from neighbors. When Carol started up her usual routine, I calmly interrupted. Before we talk about my gate, let's talk about Carol's authority to make these demands. The room went dead silent. I laid it all out, the expired registration, the fake notices, the illegal fees. Carol's face went pale. And then Chad stood up, gentle, quiet Chad, and said, "She's been collecting thousands in fake fees. She lied about the lake. She used me to sell her story." That was the moment everything broke open. Neighbors were furious, demanding their money back, threatening police action. Carol tried to justify it all. I was holding the community together, but it was over. The consensus she'd pay everyone back, apologize, and never claim authority again or face charges. Mrs. Donald was elected president in a real vote. I stayed on as legal advisor, helping draft real bylaws, making sure nobody ever had unchecked power again. But here's where it all comes together. 2 weeks after Carol left, Dr. Casey called back, this time with an offer. The state wanted to buy my lake access rights for conservation, $500,000 more than double what I'd paid for my house. The whole community would benefit, the lake protected forever, educational programs, environmental research. My thorned gate, once a symbol of division, became an educational tool for local schools. The neighborhood once ruled by fear and fraud became a model for cooperation and transparency. Looking back, it's wild to think a neighbor trying to give away my property kicked off a chain reaction that healed a community, exposed a fraud, and saved a lake. Sometimes defending your boundaries isn't just about you, it ends up protecting everyone. That gate still stands not as a wall but as a reminder. Standing up to bullies and fraudsters takes guts, but it can change everything for you and for everyone around you. Now I've got to ask, have you ever uncovered something in your neighborhood that changed the way you see everything? Where do you draw the line between standing your ground and keeping the peace? Drop your thoughts below, share your stories, and let's talk about what real justice looks like in your neighborhood and everywhere else.